Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into something, well, pretty dark. We're looking at sources that explore what happens when real horror finds you in places where help isn't coming.
Exactly. It's about that deep vulnerability, the kind that only comes with true isolation. And we're not really talking ghosts here. We're talking about human dangers, failures, the terrifying things that can happen far, far away from, well, anywhere safe.
So our goal today is to pull out the key details from 3 really chilling accounts. We've got a very calculated near miss in Europe, a story of generational isolation gone wrong in the American wilderness.
And finally, a really grim cold case.
Right.
One that shows how these empty, desolate places can become hunting grounds. Prepare yourselves. It's definitely a heavy topic, but you'll understand more about these hidden threats by the end.
Okay, let's start where things can feel the most dangerous. Alone, stranded, relying on maybe the wrong kind of stranger. Think Scottish Highlands.
Yeah, the setting is key. It's November, freezing cold, these winding roads surrounded by trees, nothing for miles. Our narrator's little Nissan Micra just dies on her. She's trying to get back to England for her mom's surprise party.
And this is like back when phones were basically plastic bricks, right? You had to hold it way up just to maybe get a single bar of signal. So she's completely stuck.
And then, predictably, a car pulls over. Middle-aged guy. Seems perfectly nice, offers to help, says he can text his mechanic friend, because texts sometimes get through and calls won't. Sounds like salvation, doesn't it?
It really does. But the source points out how fast that feeling can flip, how kindness can be, just a setup.
The first little warning sign, he gets a small detail wrong about where his own business supposedly is. Minor, but odd.
Sure.
But the real shift, the moment that sends chills down your spine, is when he changes the subject completely.
He looks at her kind of cold and asks that one question you never want to hear when you're stranded.
Was anyone expecting you?
Oh, wow. And she tries to sound cheerful, safe, tells him about the surprise party she's rushing to, and he just shows zero interest. Blank stare.
That's when she knows. This isn't about help. It's about information gathering. Is she truly alone?
And her fear is confirmed almost immediately. The help arrives, but it's not some local mechanic in a tow truck.
No, it's a brand new, unmarked white van. And there are 2 men inside, not one. The whole calculation of the trap just becomes terrifyingly obvious right then.
So she thinks fast, says she needs to nip for a wee, use the restroom, and just bolts into the trees beside the road.
Smart move. She hides and watches.
Yeah.
And the first guy, the friendly one, starts looking for her. And his voice, completely different now. Not friendly, demanding.
But here's the absolute kicker, the detail that makes it undeniably planned.
Yeah, this part is unsettling. He calls out her name. But they never exchanged names. They never introduced themselves.
Meaning they knew who she was, or at least knew someone like her would be vulnerable there. They weren't just passing by. And then she sees him, the second guy from the van, walking through the woods, searching.
Wearing a balaclava.
Just pure nightmare fuel. She does manage to get away, finds help later, goes to the police. But what does this story tell us about sort of the limits of the law in these situations?
So it shows that terrifying gap between intent and action, legally speaking. The police talked to the first guy, but what law did he break? He offered help, the mechanic showed up, she ran off. He technically did nothing illegal.
Even though she knows, absolutely knows, he was part of something sinister.
Exactly. She's left with that horror, knowing he got away with it, and wondering how many others didn't run. How many times has that worked? It's chilling how isolation can shield that kind of planned evil, operating just outside what the law can touch.
Okay, let's shift gears from that calculated threat to a different kind of horror. This one feels almost primal, born from total generational isolation. We're going to Wyoming now.
Deep in the Bighorn Mountains, the Cloud Peak Wilderness. It's huge, almost 200,000 acres, with no roads at all. The source follows 2 hikers. They know what they're doing, the narrator and her friend James. But they're 6 days into a 9-day trek.
And they're desperate, critically low on water, survival mode is kicking in.
James steps away for a moment, comes back really spooked, says he heard this weird high-pitched sound, like a yap or bark.
Okay, maybe a fox, coyote.
That's what you'd think. But he says no, it wasn't an animal. He saw who made it. It was a boy who just scurried off. James is properly freaked out, says, I think there's something wrong with that kid.
But they need water. badly. So the narrator pushes them on. Logic says, kid means family, family means water. Even though James has this terrible feeling.
Right. Survival instinct versus that gut feeling of wrongness. They press on and find it. An old log cabin. Looks ancient. And on the porch.
Yeah, the description is intense. An incredibly old person. The narrator calls them the single most facially disadvantaged person they'd ever seen.
And then someone else comes out. Younger. Maybe late teens, early 20s. But looks off her. A man-child.
And they share features, right? The old person and this younger one.
Yeah, very distinct. Thick glasses, sort of vacant stares, and this really noticeable lack of a chin. A shared genetic marker, clearly. And the younger one, he's holding a little dog, and he actually barks at the narrator. Like an involuntary tick. Animalistic.
Wow, okay. This is getting stranger and stranger.
But then the anomaly appears. A young girl, maybe early teens. And she looks completely different from the others. Jet black hair, really bright amber eyes, stands out completely against their pale features.
And she speaks.
She's the only one who does. But her English is described as extremely broken. And she gives them a warning, just says, you need to leave.
Okay, message received.
She tells him her daddy is home.
Yeah.
James, maybe curious or just reacting, takes a step towards the cabin door. He looks inside for just a second, spins around, face white as a sheet, doesn't explain, just one word. And as they're scrambling away, terrified, the narrator hears it. A huge, deep barking sound, but not from an animal, and screaming. But it's just like complete gibberish in human sound.
They get away, thankfully. But the questions, what did they stumble into? The narrator looks into it later, right?
Yeah, she does some digging. The area was designated a wilderness area back in 1984. Most people left. But some families, like this one apparently, just refused, stayed put, dropped completely off the map for decades.
Leading to, well, the obvious conclusion given the physical traits.
Extreme isolation leading to probable generational interbreeding. That explains the shared physical characteristics, the lack of chin, perhaps even the cognitive or behavioral issues.
But the girl, she didn't fit. The black hair, the amber eyes.
Exactly. She's the key.
Yeah.
Genetically, she shouldn't look like that, not in that family line. She's described as almost a genetic miracle. Which leads the narrator to a really dark theory, one that seemed kind of confirmed by how cagey the local police chief was when asked about the family.
What's the theory?
That the girl wasn't born into that family, that she was likely kidnapped, trafficked maybe, brought in to introduce, well, fresh blood into the line.
Oh my God.
And the most chilling part of the theory, that someone local, maybe even tangentially in authority, might know or even facilitate it, not out of malice maybe, but as a twisted way to contain the problem, to stop the daddy figure from potentially grabbing a local girl instead. Keep the horror contained within that isolated pocket.
That's horrifying. Isolation not just enabling something awful, but creating its own pocket reality with its own terrible rules.
Completely outside of society, outside of law. Which brings us, unfortunately, to our final source. We're shifting now to straight-up true crime and how desolate places can become, well, dumping grounds.
We're going to League City, Texas, to an area infamously known as the Killing Fields, near the old Calder oil fields. Just miles of barren, empty land back then. The kind of place you could make someone disappear, easily.
And between 1983 and 1991, that's exactly what happened. 4 women, abducted, murdered, and left there. Heidi Fye, she was a bartender. Her body was found months later. She'd been bound, tortured. It was brutal.
Laura Miller, just 16 years old. Taken from the same convenience store as Heidi, actually. Initially, police thought she was just a runaway.
And then there were 2 others who were Jane Does for decades. Audrey Lee Cook, mechanic, Donna Guzlin Prudhomme, a mother. Their identities were only confirmed very recently.
And the FBI believes it's likely one person responsible.
Yeah, the prevailing theory is a single serial killer. Someone who knew those fields intimately, knew how empty they were, how unlikely it was anyone would see anything. And because of that isolation, there were basically no witnesses, very little forensic evidence back then. The cases just went cold for years and years.
And the families just left waiting. The source talks about Laura Miller's dad, Tim. When the police weren't prioritizing it, treating her like a runaway, he started doing his own research into similar cases. Imagine that pain.
It's heartbreaking. And Donna Prudhomme's sister, Diane, she waited over 30 years just to know for sure what happened. Donna had a son who became paralyzed in an accident later in life. He actually died before they even identified his mother's remains. The human cost is just immense.
But there is a bit of hope in this story, isn't there? Technology finally caught up.
Yes, that's the crucial turn here. DNA technology advanced significantly. In 2019, they were finally able to identify Audrey Cook and Donna Prudhomme. That breakthrough gave investigators new leads, new life for the case after decades.
And the community is trying to reclaim that space too, right? Physically change what it represents.
They are. Laura Miller's father, Tim, has been leading efforts to create a peace garden right there on that land. They're actively working to change the name, the narrative, from the killing fields to the healing fields.
That's powerful. Turning a place of horror into one of remembrance and maybe hope.
It really is. A testament to resilience. And it's important to note, the case isn't closed. There's an FBI agent, Richard Renison, who's actually from League City. He's been deeply involved and continues to work the case hard, even as he's nearing retirement. That dedication matters.
So 3 incredibly grim stories. Scotland, Wyoming, Texas. What's the common thread? What do they tell us when we put them together?
I think they show unequivocally that isolation is like fertile ground for the worst parts of humanity, whether it's calculated predation like in Scotland or that kind of devolved horror in Wyoming or the opportunistic evil in the killing fields. Isolation allows it to happen. It hides it.
When there are no eyes, no society, no immediate consequences, things can happen that we don't want to imagine.
Exactly. The takeaway for you listening is maybe that the biggest dangers out there in the wild, empty places. They aren't always the bears or the weather. So often it's other people operating in the shadows, banking on the fact that nobody's watching, nobody will find out.
And realizing that line between civilization and that kind of dangerous isolation, it can be thinner than we think. Sometimes it's just a lonely road or an abandoned field on the edge of town.
We hope these accounts, while disturbing, have given you something to think about. That intersection of isolation and crime is, well, it's a deep, dark place.
It certainly is. If you follow stories of horror and chilling crime, please do make sure to follow the Horror Docx channel. Go ahead and press like, share this with someone who might find it interesting, and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive.
Thank you for joining us in the shadows today.
Good night, dear listeners.